I've never been punched in the head, but I did play Cyberpunk at launch. Speaking of, I just beat Fight Night Round 3. Now I know what you're thinking, sports game? Boxing game? But seriously, I got obsessed with this stupid thing. I played it the entire weekend and then finished it just the other day. I probably put in about 20 hours in the career mode. Okay, so for some context, I'm Tunuh and I'm beating every PS2 game. But this random number generator is picking the games for me. I'll spin it for the next game at the end of the video. So let's get into today's game, Fight Night Round 3. I start the career mode by creating my character. Now you can play as a pre-made character with default starter stats. This is called Rebuilding the Legacy. Boxers like Muhammad Ali, Roy Jones Jr., that's surprisingly hard to say, and Evander Holyfield. But I wanted to play the greatest boxer of all time. So using the character creator, I made Jake Paul. Speaking of, there's tons of options. Your stance, block style, of course your looks, muscle and height, which actually affects the weight class you're placed in. You can even change your punch style, which affects the gameplay. This is basically an RPG, so you start with points you need to distribute. Why can't I talk today? I can't talk today. You know what I mean. I find it funny how boxing is mixed with Dungeons and Dragons here. Feels a bit like oil and water, but maybe I'm too judgy. For stats, you have power, speed, agility, stamina, and then some health stats. They're all self-explanatory. Power is how much damage your punches do. Agility is how quickly you can dodge and lean. You get the idea. It's simple, but it works, and at the same time, no other game was doing it. Not for a boxing game, anyway, and certainly not a boxing game as good as this one. Now normally, I wouldn't include a boxing game in my list of beating every PS2 game, as it's a sports game, but I think extreme sports will get a pass, especially one as notoriously great as Fight Night Round 3. I don't think it's crazy to say this is probably the greatest boxing game ever made, with only one other contender even coming close, that of course being Mike Tyson's Punch-Out. Personally, I don't know if that's even a boxing game. Nothing against it, but I've always felt it's more of a puzzle game with a reflex component. Anyway, it's been like 20 years, so don't all the boxers in that game have patterns? It's difficult for me to remember. Like they do the same moves in a pattern and you win by memorizing the pattern? I could be wrong, in which case the last 60 seconds never happened. After creating your character, you gotta sign a contract. You'll be given the choice between 1 to 3 fighters to take on. They'll have their own unique stats, coin purses if you win, and some even have a bonus objective. I mean, it's a reward, but think of it as an objective. It's nothing crazy. It'll be stuff like win before the 5th round or win by judge's decision. The most interesting one I saw was lose before round 3. I guess throwing the fight? Maybe the Mafia's behind it. They also have different times, like one might be scheduled in 3 weeks from now, and another 5 weeks. This doesn't seem important, but it might tie into the age mechanic. Yeah, this game's kinda like Fable, but not really. Okay, so the career mode technically never ends, I don't think. This is hard to explain because there's a lot of mechanics and they all tie into each other. But to explain one, I need to pause to explain another. It's a bit confusing to explain in text or verbally, but it makes total sense when you're playing. So let me try. When you start the career mode, you're just a wee lad. As you take on contracts, you'll be able to do one training session. This training session will increase a few of your stats, but it'll also lower some stats by a tiny bit. Sometimes nothing at all, or just 1%. You'll continue fighting and hopefully winning, increasing your stats and fighting tougher opponents, rinse and repeat. You win some belts, make some money, use that money to buy better trainers who increase your stats faster. All good, right? But there comes a time, around late 30s, when you notice something weird. Wait a minute, since when is my chin stat so low? I swear it was higher. As you age, after every fight, your stats will begin dropping. Training offsets this a bit, but it increases as you age and deteriorate. That's when you know it's time to retire. I'm not going to get into my own journey here because it's less Lord of the Rings, I'm going on an adventure, and more, I need to walk by this homeless camp and not look anyone in the eye. It wasn't a pleasant journey, I'll say that. Now, I did have fun. I mean, it started as fun, but then it became addicting. Just one more fight. But anyway, the training works by giving you 3 mini games to play. Lift weights for strength, a memorization game for stamina, and an endurance game for health. I'm generalizing a lot, but yeah, you can use a free trainer, but if you hire one for that specific minigame, it'll boost your stats a bit more. What's weird is the progression. You start off amateur boxing, you got head protection, and no one's really gonna bleed or anything like that. I like it, it gives a sense of progression, but after that, it gets pretty gory. You'll occasionally be given a chance to fight for a belt, or to take on a legendary boxer. But as I was saying with the progression, it's less linear and more like huge jumps, which I guess can be exciting, but it feels a bit all over the place. Also, the legendary boxers were terrible. I swear, they have worse stats than the randomly generated guys I fought.
Ali's down. That punch put him on the canvas. Listen to the crowd react.
Speaking of randomly generated, you'll have a rival or two. These are guys who will pop up repeatedly while you progress your career. There will be at least one. You fight him early on, beat him, then he'll pop up later once you're fighting in bigger venues. The announcer commentary even reflects this, which is a really cool touch.
Back into the fight after that knockdown. There just cannot be too many fights between these two. Whenever they get together, the atmosphere is electric. The fights are fantastic, and the drama is breathtaking. If these fighters could handle it, the public would pay to see them square off every single week. Nice 1-2 lands there.
To be fair, it does get old by Fight 50, but I mean it's like Fight 50, so I get it. A lot of the commentary though is very homoerotic.
I want you to keep on top of this guy. Keep him in front of you and work the body. You look hot out there, kid.
Excuse me? Boxing works kinda like a fighting game. You have your blue health bar and a yellow stamina bar. The more punches you throw, the more your stamina drains and doesn't come back. Same as health, but of course taking punches. You'll get a slight recovery during the rest between rounds. You can even play a minigame to speed this up yourself. I don't know if it was a bug, but the commentators always said the opponent's boxer's corner never helped him recover at all, which matches the blood on his face.
Iceman's corner didn't accomplish too much between rounds.
It seems like the AI never let the other boxer recover whatsoever between rounds. I'm pretty sure it's a bug. The controls are where this game really shines. You throw punches, block, dodge, and parry, all using the right analog stick. To throw a jab, flick the stick forwards, slightly to the right for the right hand, left for left. Hook it to the sides and forward to throw a hook. Down, around, and up for an uppercut. Want to block face strikes? Hold R1, then hold the right analog stick up. Do the same for bodies, but hold the stick down. If you hold it at a corner, you'll parry any punches being directed at that quadrant. Yeah, that's a word. The game basically breaks up the body in quadrants. You have your left and right side of the face, and then the left and right side of the body. Do enough damage to the guy, and he'll enter a critical state. The sounds become muted, and the camera zooms in.
Trouble now. Oh, the cooler crashes down as he gets clocked by a hard hook.
If he clinches you or just holds out for about a minute, he'll recover back to normal. But if you land enough hits during this time or land a big enough hit, he'll hit the mat. There were a couple times where I got the other guy in this mode only for him to reverse it and put me in the critical state.
Mr. Showtime crashes down as he gets clocked by a hard hook.
You gotta be careful if you're both beaten to shit, but yeah, I love the boxing in this game. It's super easy to understand and it's a ton of fun to play. I loved racking together combos, punishing with parries, and intentionally going after a specific body part. For example, you can do a quick body shot and then follow it up with a hook to the face. Early on in a match, if you're doing this, you'll go exceptionally fast, and it can be pretty brutal. Later on, when you're getting deep into the rounds, both you guys are so tired, you're sluggishly going for even a single jab. I love love the difference between the first round and the fifth. I really had to manage my stamina as the career went on. The combat system it's a bit cliche to say, but it really is an easy to learn, difficult to master system. Call it morbid, but I loved focusing on the right side of the guy's face, trying to make it bleed so bad that the ref had to call the fight. Which gets into the graphics. This is a gorgeous game. I looked at some YouTube footage of the next gen versions, so this game was multi-generational, but was really meant to showcase the 360. The PS2 version is the worst graphically, but because of that, they had to change the art style. In addition to the combat system, the knockouts are a big deal too. It was crazy seeing individual sweat drops and rippling skin on the 360. Of course, the PS2 doesn't get this, but it's still a great looking PS2 game, and I always loved watching the opponent get knocked out in slow motion. Like I said, there's no real winning the career mode, but I got just about every belt, beat the greats, my rival, and old Paul's pushing 40, so I think it's time. Follow me, Paul. Yeah, behind the shed here. The shotgun? Oh, I'm going hunting later. Just close your eyes and think about those rabbits. Hold on, fucking gun's jammed. Now that Jake Paul's taken care of, I give this game 4 out of 5 punches to the head. The career mode is fun, but could have way more mechanics to mix up the gameplay loop. The gameplay itself is so good though, simple but deep. Now that that's done, it's time to spin the wheel. The next video might be Star Wars Battlefront 2, I'm not sure yet. I think it's good just to do them together. Anyway, next game, or future game, is Secret Service. I've never even heard of this game, but it's got really high reviews, so I'm excited. See you there.